These are 5 wild plants like dandelion and stinging nettle hiding in plain sight, growing in your yard, along your walking path, maybe even pushing through a crack in your sidewalk, and every single one of them is edible. This is your beginner's guide to spring foraging. Foraging means searching for and collecting food from the wild. It is how our ancestors sustained themselves for thousands of years, and right now it is experiencing an explosive comeback. The global urban foraging market sits at roughly $500 million in 2025 and is projected to triple to $1.5 billion by 2033. People are rediscovering what humans always knew. Food is everywhere, if you know where to look. Spring offers the perfect time to start. Many plants are only edible during a short window before they grow too fibrous and woody. The greens stay tender, the flavors remain mild, and several of the easiest plants to identify happen to be the ones that emerge first. This is also peak season for other spring foraging favorites like fiddlehead ferns and morel mushrooms across USDA hardiness zones 3 through 8. So let's get into it, starting with the single most recognizable plant on the planet. Number 1, dandelion, the bane of the perfect lawn seeker, but a gift to foragers, herbalists, and pollinators. Before you rip these from your garden beds this spring, consider harvesting them instead. Almost everyone on Earth can identify a dandelion, which is exactly why it is the #1 plant for beginners. But here is what most people do not realize. The entire plant is edible. Leaves, flowers, roots, all of it. The name comes from the French dandelion, meaning teeth of the lion, a reference to those jagged, serrated leaves. You will find them growing in a rosette shape low to the ground, with each leaf looking like an arrowhead pointing outward. The flowers grow on single, unbranching, hollow stems, and if you snap a leaf, it will produce a milky white sap. Here is the beautiful thing about dandelions. They have no toxic lookalikes. None. The plants that do resemble them, like cat's ear and sow thistle, are also perfectly edible. You literally cannot get this one wrong. They grow in all 50 US states and every Canadian province, in lawns, fields, roadsides, vacant lots, and open woods. Young leaves work beautifully raw in salads. The unopened flower buds can be pickled into what foragers call poor man's capers. The petals make jams, jellies, and wine. And the roots can be roasted and ground into a surprisingly convincing coffee substitute. Nutritionally, dandelion greens pack more vitamin K than kale and more iron than spinach, and they are loaded with vitamins A and C, calcium, and potassium. One critical warning though, dandelions are probably the most heavily sprayed weed out there. Never harvest from treated lawns, roadsides, or anywhere near pesticide use. Number 2, stinging nettles. Yes, they sting. And yes, you absolutely want to eat them. Stinging nettles are one of the easiest wild edibles to identify, and they are at their best in early spring when the stalks are less than a foot tall. Look for lance-shaped leaves with pointed tips and serrated edges, growing on upright stems. They thrive in moist soil near forests and riverbanks, and they are commonly foraged from February through May. Now, about the sting. The plant is covered in tiny hairs filled with histamine and other acids that break on contact, injecting those chemicals into your skin. So come equipped with thick gloves and a collection bag. But here is the thing. Once the leaves are cooked, crushed, or dried, they lose their sting completely. And what you are left with is a genuine superfood. Nettles have higher nutritional value than spinach and nearly as much protein as beans. Per 100 grams, you are getting 499 micrograms of vitamin K and over 2,000 international units of vitamin A. They taste similar to spinach and work as a direct substitute in any recipe, sautéed, blended into pesto, added to soups, or tossed into omelets. Note that nettles do contain oxalic acid, so consume in moderation if you have kidney issues. Number 3, chickweed. This is the quiet overachiever of the foraging world. Chickweed is a spring ephemeral, often one of the very first edible greens to emerge, sometimes pushing up while snow is still on the ground. It's small and unassuming, but once you know its identifying features, You'll start seeing it everywhere. Look for slender green stems with one defining characteristic: a single line of fine hairs running up one side, like a tiny plant mohawk. That mohawk is perhaps the most important feature of this plant. The flowers are tiny and white with 5 deeply cleft petals that look like 10. The Latin name stellaria actually refers to their star-like appearance. And critically, if you break a stem, it will not produce milky sap. Chickweed tastes mild, fresh, and slightly sweet, like young corn or a delicate lettuce. Because the flavor is so gentle, it's ideal for introducing wild greens to children or anyone skeptical about eating weeds. All the above-ground parts are edible: leaves, stems, buds, and flowers. One caution: the poisonous scarlet pimpernel can sometimes grow among chickweed. It lacks that signature mohawk, often has reddish undersides on its leaves, and produces red flowers instead of white. When in doubt, leave it out. Number 4, ramps, also called wild leeks, and the reason the city of Chicago has its name. That's not a joke. In the 17th century, French explorers encountered dense growths of this plant near Lake Michigan. The local indigenous people called it Chickaqua in the Miami, Illinois language, and the name stuck. Today, ramps are celebrated at annual festivals across Appalachia, drawing thousands of enthusiasts to towns like Richwood, West Virginia, for the annual Feast of the Ramson. Ramps are spring ephemerals found in rich, moist, deciduous forests across eastern North America. They emerge in mid-April and are typically available for only 2 to 3 weeks, which is part of what makes them so prized. Look for low-growing plants, 4 to 12 inches high, with 1 to 3 broad, smooth, light green leaves per plant and white or reddish-purple stems. Now, the critical identification step: crush a leaf and smell it. Ramps smell unmistakably like onion or garlic. If it does not smell like an onion, it is not a ramp. This matters because ramps have 2 extremely dangerous lookalikes. False hellebore has ribbed leaves and grows in swamps. Lily of the valley has longer roots without bulbs. Neither smells like onion. The smell test is your safety net. Because ramps take 3 to 7 years to reach harvestable size and are threatened in many regions, sustainable harvesting is essential. Never take more than 15 to 25% of a patch, and check local regulations before you harvest. Number 5, plantain. And no, not the banana. Broadleaf plantain is the plant you've been stepping on your entire life without knowing it was both edible and medicinal. There are over 200 species worldwide, and as far as botanists can tell, all of them are edible. It grows in all 50 states and nearly all Canadian provinces, thriving in lawns, gardens, and even compacted, nutrient-poor soils. Identify it by the leaves, which grow in a basal rosette with 5 or so prominent parallel veins running their length. Native Americans reportedly called it white man's foot because it seemed to spring up everywhere Europeans traveled. The seeds hitchhiking across the Atlantic in mud-caked boots. Young spring leaves are tender enough for salads. Older leaves get stringy but can be steamed. Plantain has no toxic lookalikes, making it one of the safest plants for beginners. It is also known as nature's Band-Aid. Chew up a fresh leaf and apply it to minor burns, insect bites, or small wounds for quick relief. Before you head outside, remember the golden rule of foraging. Never eat anything you cannot identify with complete confidence. Cross-reference at least 2 reliable sources. Foraging expert Samuel Thayer's The Forager's Harvest remains the gold standard for wild, edible identification. Avoid areas near roads, industrial sites, and chemically treated lawns. Ask permission on private land. Check local regulations and permits on public land. And harvest sustainably, never taking more than a quarter of any plant. Spring is brief. These plants won't wait. But once you learn to see them, you'll never look at a walk through your neighborhood the same way again.